For him that still seeks to evade the inevitable conclusion, namely that the world has no objective reality, the sages appeal to our experience in dreams. We have already considered dreams as showing that use does not prove reality. We also need to see that the notion of externality and objectivity can be a delusion. And here dreams are helpful. When we dream, we fully believe that we are seeing an external world composed of persons and things, extended in time and space, substantially similar to the waking world. This idea of externality is the cause of our taking the dream world to be real. And this belief persists so long as we are dreaming. We have not the least doubt at that time that the dream world is outside of us and real. If doubt arises on account of something extraordinary, as when we find ourselves able to fly or see a dead man come to life, and we begin to suspect that the whole thing might be a dream, the doubt is somehow overcome, and the dream is taken as real until we awaken. In fact, the continuance of the dream depends on our believing it to be real. This illusion of reality persists throughout the dream. It is only when we awake that we are able to see that it was only a dream, that there was no external world, but only a mental image which was so vivid as to create the illusion of it being external and being of reality. It may be objected that there is a difference. We awaken from a dream and can thus realize its unreality, but our awakening experience has no end. We do not have an opportunity to realize its falsity. But we are told by the sages that there is a waking from this dream, called waking, and that then the dream will come to an end. This aspect of the question will be discussed later, when we come to discuss the three states of personal experience. Here we are concerned only with the elusiveness of the sense of externality, which is the cause of the sense of reality. He that demurs to this conclusion must be able to tell us of some infallible device by which we can detect the dream nature of dreams while we are dreaming. If there be such a device, it would be one that will enable us to discover the dream nature of waking also. Whether in dream or in waking, if one turns aside from the world and tries to see him that sees that world, the world and its seer would vanish together, and the self alone would remain. These and other considerations must make it easy for us to entertain the view put forward by the sages, that the world is not an objective reality, that it has no existence of its own. There is only one thing that has such existence, namely the self, Atman, and this we shall see in a later chapter. Since the world is nothing but the mind, the truth of it depends on the truth of the mind. So we have now to see whether the mind, which is the creator of the world, both in waking and in dream, is itself real. The sage points out that the mind is discontinuous. It arises with a ready-made world and sets with it as if it were told already. In dreamless sleep there is no mind and no world. Judged by the standard of reality that the sages have given us, the mind is unreal. The mind, says the sage of Arunachala, is nothing but the stream of thoughts that passes over consciousness. Of all these thoughts, the first one is the thought, I am this body. This is a false thought, but because it is taken as true, it is possible for other thoughts to arise. So the mind is just an outgrowth of the primary ignorance, and is therefore unreal. That we are not the mind, that the mind is not the self, is clear from this. The mind does not exist in sleep, but we continue to exist in sleep. Besides, the self exists in the state beyond the three states, namely beyond waking, dream, and deep sleep. We have not exhausted all the possible objections that can be raised by an inveterate believer in the reality of the world. There is, of course, no end to the objections that the ego mind will go on raising, if encouraged to do so. We have noticed already the reason why the mind is so tireless in raising difficulties. The sage has shown us how to deal with the unruly mind when it proves troublesome in this or any other way. The result of all this inquiry is this: to be able to recover our true nature as the real self, we must free ourselves from the superstition that the world is real. Of course, it is not necessary that we should bind ourselves to the opposite belief, that the world is unreal. But if it so happens that we cannot give up our present belief in the reality of the world without taking up the opposite belief, that the world is unreal, we must take it up, even though it is not strictly true, as explained before. The textbooks of the Advaitic lore ask us to steer a middle course, if it be possible. They tell us to remember that the world is indefinable as true or untrue. And this is philosophically correct, as it is in accord with the teaching of the sages. We may put aside the world and cease thinking about it, understanding that the truth can be realized only by the complete and final extinction of the primary ignorance, by the revelation of the real self, which will come by pursuing the quest taught by the sage. If we cannot do this, we need to relax the grip of the ignorance by reminding ourselves that in all probability the world is just a fantasy of our own errant minds, somewhat like the one depicted by Lewis Carroll in Alice in Wonderland. There are the heroine takes the wonder world that she sees as quite real until the very end. Then she finds that the world was a false appearance, that the men, women, and animals she had been seeing were only a pack of cards. So also the emancipated one may find that this solid-seeming world is only a pack of thoughts. It may be useful to point out that the sages do not seek to impose a new faith of their own, but only to release the disciple from the grip of those notions that hinder the quest. The method that is being set forth in these chapters, namely, abstracting the mind from the world by tentatively accepting the view that it is only a pack of thoughts, has been called subjective idealism, because it resembles a somewhat similar view of the world taught by Berkeley. But our idealism, if it be so called, is an aid to the quest of the self. It is not recommended for acceptance by anyone who is not eager to obtain the direct revelation of the authentic self. It differs also from mere idealism, which Berkeley stated, in that it is integrally related to the unique teaching of the sages, that underlying the false appearance there is the transcendental real self. It is not contended that for all aspirants this is the best of all possible methods. A method is better or worse than another only in relation to a particular person, not generally. It is also true that this is not the only method of escape from bondage. Those whom this method does not suit can follow the path of devotion, which is dealt with later. Such persons are told that the world is real, because the reality, called God, is the material and efficient cause of it. There is no inconsistency in this, because, as the sage has often told us, the teaching must ever be suited to the taught.